Hi, I'm Karl Konrad. We at Australian Immigration Law Services have been helping people get their visas to live, work and study in Australia for 22 years, and we're here to help you learn more about Australian visas. Subscribe for our guides, tips and important news and updates to immigration regulation and visa requirements. And if you need more help, we do Zoom, Skype and telephone consultations wherever you are located around this globe. Now, if you've been following us, you'll know how Australian state nomination works. For those who are new though, to be eligible for the 190 or 491 visa, you have to meet all the basic requirements that are set by the Immigration Department. You will then need to be selected by an Australian state or territory. Every region is able to independently set their own nomination requirements, and most require that you are already living in their state. But there are sometimes options for those who are overseas as well. Each state has their own list of occupations determined by the particular demand in that region. Application processes and application dates can also differ. Remember, occupation lists do change, but not every month, but you need to be sure to check the date of information as they can change at any time. Some key Immigration Department requirements include being under the age of 45, scoring the minimum of 65 points on the points test, having a skill assessment in your nominated occupation, and having competent level of English. Watch our videos to learn more about the 190 and 491 visa and about the Immigration Department's requirements for these visas. Now you'll find the link in the description below to those videos. There are a couple of ways in which you'll be able to qualify for the Queensland nomination. These are if you're working in Queensland or if you have purchased a small business in Queensland. Now currently Queensland remains closed to overseas application, but let's hope that changes soon, but probably not till next financial year, commencing in July 2021. You need to have an occupation on the Priority Migration Skilled Occupation List, otherwise known as the PMSOL. The PMSOL was put in place by the Immigration Department to prioritise critical skills during the pandemic, and there are currently 18 occupations on this list. Although primarily medical professions, there are a number of non-medical occupations related to high-level roles in construction, infrastructure and ICT. The occupation of maintenance planner is missing from our list here, as it is not eligible for the 190 under Queensland. You must have been living and working in Queensland in your nominated occupation or in one that is closely related, and the work must be post-qualification and be full-time at least 35 hours a week for the last 6 months. You will need to provide evidence of ongoing employment also at 35 hours a week for a further 12 months, and your employer must be in Queensland and registered in Australia. Queensland prioritises those with 80 points and above on their points test score. For those applying for the 491 visa, you must have an occupation with critical skills or in a critical sector that would help the Australia COVID-19 response. There are no specific occupations, but these include the full PMSOL and occupations in the following sectors: air ambulance, critical medical, medical technology, engineering, critical infrastructure, supply chain, telecommunications, film and television production, maritime industry, agricultural technology and food technology, mining, emerging technologies, financial technology and large-scale manufacturing. Now these loose definitions actually allow for more occupations, so long as you can put forth a good reasoning. And yes, you'll need to provide your reasoning to the Queensland Government and include the details of your employer and the role. You must be living and working in regional Queensland, and the work must be post-qualification and at least 35 hours per week for at least 3 months. And you must show evidence of ongoing employment also at 35 hours per week for a further 12 months. Your employer must also be located in Queensland and registered in Australia. Now the regional Queensland include areas outside of Brisbane in the postcode list here. You need to submit your expression of interest in Skill Select and select Queensland as your preference. Queensland will then select you based upon your expression of interest, so make sure all the information needed to show you meet Queensland nomination requirements, such as relating to your work experience, is in Skill Select. If you are selected, Queensland will send you an invitation to apply for nomination, and you will need to provide detailed documentation. You have 14 days to do this. If Queensland approves your nomination application, you will receive an invitation to apply for your 190 or 491 visa from the Immigration Department. Now, at the time of this video, that costs $220. The applications are currently closed but will open again in April 2021. So you have a couple of months to get ready, so get to it. However, there is another way into Queensland that is open right now. You may be eligible for the 491 visa through purchasing an existing small business in regional Queensland. The requirements are quite strict so that this pathway will not be misused. The business must have already been in operation for 12 months prior to the purchase. Now, startups or home-based businesses are not eligible. Franchise businesses are, but they also must have been operating for a year before the purchase. Now, you will need to have invested at least $100,000 in the business, and this must have occurred before you submitted your expression of interest to Skill Select. Now, this figure can include the purchase price, any capital investments such as machinery, freezers, delivery vehicles, and renovations. You need to have 100% ownership of this business, and partnerships or joint ventures are not eligible. Your business needs to have been in operation for at least 6 months from your purchase before you applied to Queensland. You also need to have one employee who is an Australian resident and who is working for a minimum of 20 hours per week. And in this case, the Australian resident can be another 491 visa holder, an Australian permanent resident or citizen, or an eligible New Zealand citizen. They cannot, however, be employed as a contractor or be one of your relatives. Those are the requirements for the business. These requirements are all about you. You need to show relevant business experience or a qualification to demonstrate that you are able to successfully run the business. Now, the Queensland Government, however, does consider successful operation of the business for 6 months prior to submitting the EOI as sufficient business management experience for the application process. You must also be able to nominate an occupation on the Immigration Department's 491 visa list, and it does not have to be relevant to the business at all. You must have a valid skill assessment in the occupation you have nominated, and you'll find a link to the occupation list in the description below. Now remember, you need to be on a visa that allows you to work and operate the business full-time at least 35 hours per week. You will need to submit your expression of interest on Skill Select, selecting Queensland as your preference. However, for you small business owners, you additionally need to complete a 491 Small Business Owners Assessment form online. This will allow Queensland to pick up your expression of interest in Skill Select for the Small Business Owners pathway. The rest of the application process is the same as other Queensland pathways, and at the time of this video, the application fee for the small business owners is $440. Although Queensland is a little restricted in terms of occupations for the working in Queensland category, this should improve once we're out of the pandemic. Requirements otherwise are fairly reasonable. Sunny Queensland is a beautiful place to live in, as many would attest to. Now, if you need tailored advice, reach out to our team. In the meantime, there are many more free resources over at our blog at australiavisa.com. Now, don't forget to join us on Facebook so you won't miss any of our updates. And we post minor updates there as well, such as when states open for applications. Most important, like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and I will see you next week.